I'm Patricia, 25, female. I work as an administrative assistant, which mostly means I organize the lives of people who make more money than I do. It's a quiet life, or at least it was. I live in a small city, I have a 9-to-5 job, and I pay my bills on time. For years, my biggest ambition was just to save enough money to get my own apartment, away from the tension of my family home. I always felt like the odd one out, the responsible placeholder in a house that revolved around my younger brother. But I never imagined my family was capable of true cruelty. I thought their favoritism was just a flaw, not a weapon. That all changed one Christmas Eve when they kicked me out into the snow so my brother could have my room. What they didn't know, and what I was about to discover, was that the house they just kicked me out of was mine. Before this story unfolds, I'd love to connect with you. Please let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is in your corner of the world. It's amazing to see how far these stories can travel. The week leading up to Christmas was thick with a familiar, toxic energy. My brother, Ryan, 21 years old and the shining golden child of the family, was home from college, or more accurately, home from having been politely asked to leave his dorm after failing all his midterms. He wasn't working, and his days were spent playing video games in the living room, surrounded by a mountain of snack wrappers. My mother, Susan, a 52-year-old receptionist, thought he was a misunderstood genius. My father, Robert, a 55-year-old plumber, just grunted in agreement whenever she spoke. The argument started, as it always did, over Ryan. Patricia, my mother started, not looking up from her phone as I walked in from work on Christmas Eve. "We need to talk about your room." I stopped, my keys still in my hand. "What about my room?" "Well," she said, finally looking at me with that passively aggressive smile. "Ryan needs a place to set up his gaming equipment properly. He's going to be a professional streamer, you know. He needs a dedicated office, and your room has the best internet connection." I stared at her. "He needs an office, Mom. He's playing video games. I work, I live here. That's my bedroom. Don't be selfish, Patricia." My father chimed in from his armchair, his eyes glued to the TV. "Your brother needs our support, and I don't." I could feel the familiar sting of frustration. "Where am I supposed to go? The attic?" "Exactly." My mother beamed as if I'd offered the solution myself. "We've already started clearing it out. It'll be cozy." The attic was a cold, triangular space with a single, drafty window and exposed insulation. It was where we stored broken furniture and Christmas decorations. The idea was so insulting, so demeaning, that I couldn't hold back. "Absolutely not," I said, my voice shaking. "I am not moving into the attic so Ryan can have a gaming setup." "That is insane." Ryan himself finally paused his game, swiveling in his chair. "Come on, Trish, don't be a witch. It's Christmas. I need this." "You need to get a job, Ryan." I snapped. That was the line. My mother stood up, her face turning a blotchy red. "You will not speak to your brother like that. He is sensitive. You, on the other hand, are a thankless, selfish child. I am the only one in this house with a job." I shouted back. "I pay for the groceries. I pay the internet bill you all use. This is our house, young lady." My father roared, finally standing up. "My house, my rules. If you won't do this one small thing for your family, then you have no place here. If you're going to be so selfish, you can just get out." I froze. The air left my lungs. "What?" "You heard him." And my mother said, her voice cold as ice. She walked to the hall closet and pulled out my winter coat, throwing it at me. "Get out. If you can't be part of this family, you can go. Come back when you've learned some respect." I looked from her cold face to my father's angry one. Ryan had already put his headphones back on. They were serious. They were kicking me out on Christmas Eve. Tears streamed down my face, hot with humiliation and rage. I said nothing. I didn't beg. I didn't plead. I grabbed my coat, shoved my feet into my boots, and walked out the front door into the falling snow. I sat in my beat-up car for what felt like an hour, the engine running just to keep the heat on, watching the Christmas lights on the neighboring houses twinkle. I was completely numb. My own family's house went dark as they closed the curtains, shutting me out completely. I had about $400 in my checking account. Not enough for a hotel for more than a few days, and certainly not enough for a security deposit on an apartment. I drove to the cheapest, cleanest looking motel on the edge of town and paid for 2 nights. The room smelled like stale cigarettes and bleach. I sat on the stiff comforter and just cried. About an hour later, my phone buzzed. It was a text from my mother. "We put your important things on the porch. Come and get them. We don't want to be responsible for them." They hadn't even packed me a bag. They had just thrown my things out. I drove back, my heart pounding with a new, bitter anger. Sure enough, sitting on the porch, with a dusting of fresh snow already covering it, was a single cardboard box, not a suitcase, a box. It was the memory box I kept in my closet. I grabbed it, threw it in my passenger seat, and drove back to the motel, refusing to give them the satisfaction of seeing me cry again. Back in the grim motel room, I sifted through the contents. Old photos, my high school diploma, my birth certificate, and at the bottom, a thick manila envelope I didn't recognize. It was addressed to me in my grandmother's elegant cursive. My grandmother, my dad's mom, had passed away 5 years ago. She was the only person in the family who had ever truly seen me. My fingers trembled as I opened it. Inside were two things, a letter and a heavy, old-fashioned brass key. The letter began, "My dearest Patricia, if you are reading this, it means you have turned 25, or you are in a time of great need. I am so sorry I am not there to give this to you myself. I have watched you grow up, and I have seen how your parents are. Your father is a weak man, and your mother is a selfish one. They do not deserve a daughter like you. I am leaving you the one thing I can. The key is to a safe deposit box at the downtown bank. But what is more important is the document folded with this letter. Do not let them bully you. What is yours is yours." My brow furrowed. I unfolded the other document. It was thick, official-looking paper. I scanned the legal jargon, and my heart stopped. It was a deed, the deed to my family's house. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely read the text. I read it once, twice, and then a third time. The words finally started to sink in. My grandmother, a smart and savvy woman who had saved her money her whole life, had bought the house my parents lived in over a decade ago. She had, as the letter went on to explain, set up a living trust. She allowed my parents and their children to live there rent-free, under the guise that it was her house, which my father was helping to maintain. But the trust had a very specific clause. The moment I, her granddaughter, turned 25, the trust would be dissolved and the ownership of the property would be transferred in its entirety to me. My 25th birthday had been 2 months ago. They knew. They must have known. Their sudden, desperate need to get me out of their house, their escalation from a simple argument to kicking me out. It wasn't about Ryan's gaming setup. It was a power play. They must have been notified by the trust's lawyer that the transfer was complete. They were trying to bully me, to kick me out and assert dominance, hoping I would never find out that I was, in fact, their landlord. The sheer, cold-blooded audacity of it was staggering. They had kicked me out of my own house. I didn't sleep a wink. I spent the entire night, Christmas Eve, staring at the peeling motel ceiling, a cold, hard resolve solidifying in my chest. The tears were gone, replaced by something I had never felt before, pure, unadulterated rage. They had mistaken my kindness for weakness for the last time. Christmas Day was a blur. I bought a stale muffin from the motel lobby and drank bitter coffee. My phone was silent. No calls, no texts, no Merry Christmas, no Are you okay? They had discarded me. The day after Christmas, I was outside the office of a real estate lawyer before it even opened. I found Maria Sanchez through a quick online search. Her reviews all said the same thing: sharp, no nonsense, efficient. She was exactly what I needed. I sat in her plush office, my grandmother's letter, and the deed on the table between us. I told her the whole story, from Christmas Eve back to every time I'd felt invisible in that house. She listened, her face perfectly neutral, taking notes. When I finished, she folded her hands. M.S. Miller, she said, her voice calm and firm. First, what your family did is monstrous. Second, from a legal standpoint, you are in an ironclad position. She explained it all. The trust was perfectly executed. The deed was filed with the county. The house was 100% mine. My parents and my brother were, as of my 25th birthday, tenants living in my property without a lease. So what do? I asked, my voice small. That depends, Maria said, leaning forward. What do you want to do? You could technically charge them rent, or you could have them evicted. I thought about my mother's sneer, my father's roar, Ryan's smug, indifferent face. I thought about the box left in the snow. I want them out, I said, and the strength in my own voice surprised me. I want to sell the house. I want to be free of them. A small, thin smile touched Maria's lips. A clean break. I admire that. It's the healthiest option, but it will be a fight. I don't care, I said. They started this. Very well, she said. She immediately got to work. She explained that, as they were technically tenants, we had to follow the law. We would serve them with a formal, written 30. 30-day notice to vacate the premises. If they didn't leave by that date, we would file for a formal eviction. Maria typed up the notice right there. It was legal, terrifying, and completely impersonal. It named Susan, Robert, and Ryan Miller as the occupants and gave them 30 days to vacate and surrender possession of the property now legally owned by me, Patricia Miller. She hired a process server that same day. That evening, a formal, uniformed man knocked on their door and handed my mother the envelope. My phone exploded 2 minutes later. It was my mother screaming. I had never heard a sound like it. It was a mix of pure rage and, for the first time, panic. "What is this? What did you do, you ungrateful brat? You think this is funny? This is our house?" I held the phone away from my ear, took a deep breath, and channeled Maria's energy. "No, Mom, it's my house," I said, my voice perfectly level. "My grandmother left it to me. I have the deed. You have 30 days to find a new place to live. Do not contact me again. If you have questions, you can call my lawyer." I hung up. The 30-day notice period was a war of psychological attrition. My parents tried every tactic in their playbook. First came the guilt. My father, Robert, left me a string of rambling, drunken voicemails. "Patricia, baby, this is your dad. You're tearing this family apart. Your mother is a wreck. You can't do this to us, after everything we did for you. You can't just throw us on the street. It's cold out." As if I didn't know, I thought, remembering my car in the snow. I deleted the voicemails. Then came the flying monkey. My brother, Ryan, sent me a barrage of texts. "You're a psycho. You're ruining my life. Where am I supposed to set up my gaming rig now? You're just jealous of me. You'll always be a fat, ugly loser." I blocked his number. Then my mother tried to rally the extended family. My aunt, my mother's sister, called me. "Patricia, I am so disappointed in you. Your parents gave you everything, and this is how you repay them, kicking them out of their home for shame." "Did she tell you why I'm kicking them out, Aunt Carol?" I asked. "Did she tell you she kicked me out on Christmas Eve and threw my belongings on the porch?" Aunt Carol sputtered. "Well?" "She said you were being disrespectful." She lied. I said and hung up. Meanwhile, I was moving. Maria had advised me to get a realtor immediately. I found one, a kind woman named Sarah, who was horrified by my story. She agreed to an expedited sale. The housing market was hot, and she said a well-maintained house in that neighborhood would sell fast. On day 15, my parents were still clearly in denial. They hadn't packed a single box. They thought I was bluffing, so I made my next move. On a Tuesday morning, when I knew my dad was at work, my mom was at her receptionist job, and Ryan was wherever Ryan went. I met Sarah, the realtor, at the house. I used my grandmother's old key to unlock the front door. It felt strange, walking into the house that was mine but never felt like home. Together, Sarah and I walked through it. She made notes. Then we went outside, and she hammered a large, bright red "for sale" sign into the frozen front lawn. That afternoon, the real explosion happened. The neighbors had, of course, seen the sign immediately. My mother came home from work to a street full of staring eyes and a sign on her lawn. Her text message was just a string of incoherent, furious words. Then she called me, screaming so loud the speaker on my phone distorted. "Take ID down. Take ID down now. You are humiliating US. I will call the police. I will have you arrested for harassment." I waited for her to take a breath. "It's not harassment, Susan," I said. Using her first name felt like a shield. "It's my property, and I am selling it. The first open house is this Saturday. I suggest you and your things are not there. You have 15 days left." The open house was a disaster, but a predictable one. My parents refused to leave. When the realtor, Sarah, showed up, my mother refused to let her in, screaming at her from the doorway. Sarah had to call the police just to keep the peace. My parents, of course, played victims, telling the officers that their mentally unstable daughter was trying to sell their house. Sarah, ever the professional, showed the officers the listing agreement and a copy of the deed. The police politely told my parents that it was a civil matter, and they couldn't force the realtor to leave, but the damage was done. No one wants to buy a house with a screaming woman on the porch. They won't leave, will they? I said to Maria over the phone, feeling the first crack in my resolve. "No," and Maria said simply, "They're squatters at this point. They are betting on you giving in. We will not." The 30-day notice expires on January 25th. On January 26th at 9:00 a.m., I am filing the eviction paperwork with the court. The sheriff will serve them. The next week was hell. They tried to show up at my work. I had to have building security escort my own father out of the lobby. He was crying, making a huge scene, begging my boss to talk to me. It was the single most humiliating moment of my life. I was shaking with anger and embarrassment, but I held firm. January 25th arrived, the deadline. I got one final, desperate call from my mother. Her tone had changed. The rage was gone, replaced by a wheedling, manipulative plea. Patricia, honey. Listen, we've had time to think. We're so sorry. We were just so stressed about Christmas. Of course, we want you to come home. Come home. We'll talk about it. We can. We can put Ryan in the attic, okay? Does that make you happy, just? Call off the lawyers. Take down the sign. Let's be a family again. I listened to her fake, sweet voice and felt nothing but ice in my veins. Where was this apology on Christmas Eve? I asked we just lost our tempers, baby. You lost your tempers. I repeated, you kicked me out, you threw my things in the snow, you insulted me, harassed me at my job, and lied to our entire family. All because you thought I was powerless. Patricia, don't be so dramatic. It's too late, Mom. I said the house is sold. There was a dead silence on the other end of the line. What did you say? I got an all-cash offer this afternoon. They waived the inspection. They want to close in 5 days. The house is sold. You have to be out by the 31st. After that, the new owners will take possession, and I'm sure they won't be as patient as I've been. Goodbye. I hung up the phone and blocked her number, my father's number, and my aunt's number. I was done. The last week of January was, I assume, a frantic panic for them. I wouldn't know. I was busy signing closing paperwork. The money from the sale. More than I had ever dreamed of hit my bank account on the 31st. I spent that night in my new small one-bedroom apartment that I'd rented. It was quiet. It was safe. It was all mine. On February 1st, I got a call, not from my family, but from Maria. It's done. She said, what happened? I asked. Well, they didn't leave as predicted. The new owners arrived this morning with their moving truck, and your parents refused to open the door. The owners had to call the sheriff. They were forcibly removed. I closed my eyes, picturing the scene, my mother screaming, my father looking helpless, Ryan probably complaining that they were interrupting his game. I saw them standing on the curb, surrounded by their things, a box in the snow, a wave of, not guilt, but a deep, profound sadness washed over me. It was the death of a family that never really was. Patricia, are you okay? Maria asked. I am. I said, and I meant it. Thank you, Maria. For everything, I used the money from the sale as a down payment on a small condo in a completely different city, 3 hours away. I found a new job as an office manager, a step up from my old one. My new life is simple. I have a cat. I have plants in my window. I have peace. I haven't spoken to my parents or brother since that last phone call. I heard through the grapevine that they're all living in a cramped 2-bedroom apartment, and that my dad is working 2 jobs to support Ryan, who is still, at 22, figuring things out. Sometimes I feel a twinge of anger, but mostly I just feel free. My grandmother gave me more than a house. She gave me an escape. They thought I was a doormat, but they forgot that even a doormat has a line. They crossed it, and in doing so, they lost everything. I just closed the door behind me.